Chapter 12. Family Problems? Strange Sightings. Janice Campbell hated to worry. Her life was about control, discipline, and making sure her brother and cousin did not get into too much trouble. She had spent a good portion of her time maintaining that balance in this existence she called life, but those around her just kept on making it more challenging by the day. She huffed in silent contemplation, closing Devon's bedroom door. This had been the 4th day she had woken up to find him gone. No note, no message, not even a phone call saying, "Hi, how are you? I'm in Dubai right now, just taking some time to get my head together, that's all." He just had to up and leave, just to make her worry. Janice went back into her room, sat down at her keyboards, and played her music at a low volume. It was just after 7 in the morning. Her mother would have still been asleep, and so she kept the volume down. Not that she needed to hear what she was playing. She could hear the soft melodies in her head without even noticing that her amp was off. She could conduct a whole orchestra in her mind if she wanted to. But who else besides her would enjoy that? Janice shook her head and began to play the first few songs she and Devon wrote together some time ago. The music filled her, letting each note sing their respective tone, her mind filling the void with percussion and guitars. The key of D major always made her feel good. Janice smiled, but it soon faded. They weren't there. None of them were. Slowly the instruments went silent as the room was empty once again, leaving her alone to ponder. Shutting off her keyboard, Janice stood and headed for the window. The scene of the backyard was beautiful. Janice always knew that she had the best view of the house. The large trees lined the spacious yard, spreading from there toward the hills farther away. She remembered as a child chasing the boys around the yard all day, laughing and playing. Nothing was sad or worrisome back then. It was all just so simple. Where did it all go so wrong? When did I grow up? She turned away from the window with a smile. God, I'm starting to sound like my mother. That thought alone almost made her laugh out loud. To her, that could have been the most amusing idea she'd had in a long time. But it still did not keep her mind off Devon. Where could he be? Janice exited her room and made her way downstairs to the kitchen. "Guess I can't worry about anyone on an empty stomach," she spoke. She opened the refrigerator, took out some orange juice, a piece of bread, some cheese, and a little jar of dill pickles she kept out of sight. If worrying was a full-time job, then Janice had earned her breakfast. She ate, still trying to think of places her goofball cousin could be. Janice sighed. She knew she shouldn't call him that. As much of a pain as he was sometimes, she still loved him. He was at least more stable than her brother was. This time she laughed. As she did, pieces of bread flew from her mouth and down to the floor, but Janice couldn't help it. Sean was a gifted musician, a great athlete back in their school days, but boy did he have his problems. It's a good thing Alyssa joined the crowd when she did. Janice's waning thoughts meandered toward her best friend, now turned sister-in-law. "Funny how that works," she mumbled. Janice cleaned up her mess, put her dishes in the sink, grabbed an apple from the basket on the table, and left for the living room. She hesitated the moment she set foot across the threshold. There, on the sofa, sat her mother. Janice frowned. All that sneaking around for nothing, she thought. "Morning, Mum," she told her. Sandra turned to look at her daughter. "Jan, hey, come watch this!" Janice stared at her mother. She was never one to become real excited by much of anything on the television, but judging by her appearance, it appeared as if she had been watching it for some time now. Sandra's blue eyes had darkened bags underneath them. Her shaggy blonde hair pulled back into a ponytail, and she was still wearing her light blue pyjamas that Janice could have sworn she was wearing yesterday. "What? What's going on? Have you been up all night?" Sandra yanked on Janice's arm, pulling her to sit down. She pointed to the television, using the remote to make sure it was loud enough to hear. Janice began to watch, but nothing was making sense. It appears that there have been some random events happening lately that have been baffling scientists. If you are just joining us, there have been reports of several instances of people seeing images and apparitions, ghosts, if you will, as some would call them, disappearing and reappearing as if some biblical prophecy has started to come true. Now, we don't normally report on such superstitious events, except for the fact that reports and sightings have increased almost 1,000% in the last few days. Now, these reports are not just localised. We've been receiving reports of sightings from all over the country, even the world. Why, we've just received a report from China. Janice shook her head, not quite understanding what they were talking about. "I don't understand," said Janice. "What's going on?" Her mother put her hand to her mouth as she looked at her daughter with wide eyes. "I saw one," she exclaimed in a whisper. "I saw something in my bedroom the other night. It scared the crap out of me, but it didn't seem bad. It looked like it was just passing through, didn't even bother to glance my way." Janice sat in shock by what her mother was saying. "Are you saying you saw a ghost?" Sandra stared at her and nodded. "I think so," she replied. "And now there are all these reports coming in from around the world. Isn't this weird? Kind of like the end of times or something." A shiver ran down Janice's spine. She was never a religious person, nor did she practice any kind of faith. But hearing what was being said this time made her wonder. She quickly looked about, throwing idle glances around, wondering if she would see something as well. "Where's Devin? I bet he would get a kick out of all of this." Sandra started to get up as Janice caught her by the arm before she could stand. "Mom," she told her, "he's gone." Sandra stared at her, her eyes not sure of what she had just heard. "What do you mean, gone?" she asked, sitting back down. Her brow creased as worry began to take over her expression. "I didn't want to tell you," started Janice, "but he's been missing for a few days now. I don't know where he is." Sandra stared at her as if she could not believe it. She started to say something, but Janice answered her before she could speak. "Sean doesn't know either," she added. "Besides, I didn't want to worry him and Alyssa, it finally being their honeymoon and all." Sandra sighed. Then an idea struck her. "How long has he been gone?" "4 days now," replied Janice. "Why?" Sandra shifted around uncomfortably on the couch. "That's about the same time when all these weird things started to happen," she told her. Janice turned back to the television. Just the mere subject matter was starting to bother her as she tried to come up with a reasonable explanation, but nothing was coming to mind. "Do you think there's a connection?" Sandra shook her head. "I don't know," she replied. "I really don't know."